She is standing in the produce section of a small grocery store in Osaka. Her daughter, maybe 2.5 years old, has just dropped an orange. It rolled under the shelf. The little girl looks up at her mother, her face beginning to crumple, the familiar storm gathering behind her eyes. And the mother does something that stops you cold if you are watching. She does nothing. She waits. She holds her daughter's gaze with a calm, steady expression. Not cold, not distant, just present. And in the space of about 4 seconds, the little girl bends down, retrieves the orange herself, places it back in the basket, and they move on. No meltdown, no negotiation, no reward, no drama. Just a child who found her own footing and a mother who believed she would. If you have ever stood in a grocery store while your toddler collapsed onto the floor over a wrong-colored cup, you are probably wondering what just happened. And the answer goes much deeper than parenting technique. It goes to the root of how Japanese culture understands children, emotions, and what it actually means to help someone. The first concept you need to understand is called Mimamoru, pronounced Mimamoru, written with 2 characters, one meaning to watch and one meaning to protect. Together, they describe a philosophy of protective watching, the idea that you can guard a child not by intervening, but by being fully present while they work through difficulty themselves. In Japanese early childhood education, Mimamoru is not a passive idea. It is an active, intentional practice. Educators are trained to observe carefully, to resist the reflex to step in, and to trust that the child's struggle is not a problem to be solved, but a capacity being built. The watching is the protecting.
Western parenting culture has almost no framework for this. In fact, we've been trained to believe the opposite, that a child in distress is a child being failed, and that good parenting means immediate response, immediate comfort, immediate resolution. The moment a toddler's face tightens, the average Western parent moves toward them. We pick them up, we offer alternatives, we negotiate, we redirect, we explain, we sometimes bribe, and we do all of this with enormous love, believing we are helping. But what the research now tells us is that we may be interrupting something the child's brain desperately needs to complete on its own. A landmark study conducted at the University of Minnesota's Institute of Child Development, published in the journal Child Development, tracked children's emotional regulation abilities from toddlerhood through early adolescence. What they found was striking. Children whose caregivers consistently intervened before emotional distress could resolve naturally showed significantly lower self-regulation capacity by age 7. The children who were allowed to experience mild distress, with a calm, present adult nearby but not immediately fixing things, developed stronger neural pathways for returning to calm on their own. The brain, it turns out, learns to regulate emotion the same way a muscle learns to carry weight. It needs to do the work. This brings us to the second concept, Amae, pronounced Amae, written with a character that carries the meaning of sweetness, specifically the sweetness of depending on someone who you trust completely. Amae describes the kind of deep, wordless security a child feels when they know their caregiver is there, is safe, and will not leave, even when they are struggling. It is not the security that comes from being rescued. It is the security that comes from being witnessed. Japanese mothers understand that a child who feels amae does not need the tantrum to end quickly. They need to know that the person they love most is not frightened by their emotion, is not angry at it, and is not going to abandon them because of it. That knowledge, communicated not through words but through calm, steady presence, is what allows the storm to pass on its own. Western culture, by contrast, tends to treat toddler emotion as a behavioral problem. We talk about tantrums as things that are thrown, as if the child is choosing to be difficult. We assess them as parenting failures, or signs of a child who needs more discipline, more structure, or more firmness. We feel publicly embarrassed by them in ways that have nothing to do with the child's well-being and everything to do with our own discomfort. And so we rush to end them, not because the emotion is dangerous, but because we find it unbearable. The Japanese framework gently asks us to consider that our own emotional dysregulation may be what is actually driving the cycle. Researchers at Kyoto University, in a study published in the journal Infant Behavior and Development, observed mother-toddler pairs across both Japanese and Western households during mild stress scenarios.
Japanese mothers showed markedly lower physiological arousal responses measured through heart rate and cortisol when their toddlers became distressed. They waited longer before intervening, maintained softer facial expressions, and spoke less during the distress period. Their children, correspondingly, returned to calm baselines significantly faster than the Western children whose mothers intervened sooner. The conclusion the researchers drew was not that Japanese mothers care less. It was that their calm nervous system acted as a biological anchor for the child's own system, a process called co-regulation, and that this anchor was more powerful than any verbal or physical intervention. The third concept is ma, pronounced ma, written with a single character that depicts a gate with the light of the moon shining through it. Ma means the pause, the space between things. In music, it is the silence between notes. In architecture, it is the empty room that gives meaning to the furnished one. In parenting, ma is the deliberate pause between a child's distress and a parent's response. It is not indifference, it is the recognition that the space itself has value, that something important happens in it. Japanese culture trains people from childhood to honor the pause, to resist the discomfort of silence, to trust that not immediately filling a moment is not the same as abandoning it. Here is your first tactic, and you can begin tonight. Before you respond to the next moment of distress, whether it is a whine, a cry, or a beginning wobble of the lip, count silently to 5. Not to punish your child with delay, not to seem unbothered, but to give your own nervous system a moment to settle, and to give your child the first fraction of a second they need to begin self-correcting. You will be astonished how often a child who is given 5 seconds will find their own way through. The tantrum that felt inevitable dissolves before it fully forms. This is ma in practice, the pause that protects. Here is the second practice. The next time your child is in genuine distress and not in physical danger, try sitting or crouching nearby, making eye contact and saying nothing. Do not fix, do not redirect, do not explain that they can have the cookie after dinner or that the toy belongs to someone else right now. Simply be there. Let your face be soft, let your body be still. Let them feel you without you pulling them toward resolution. What you are giving them in that moment is Amae, the deep cellular knowledge that your love does not require them to stop feeling what they are feeling. Most parents who try this for the first time report that their child calms faster than they expected, and that something in themselves relaxes too, as if they had been carrying a tension they never named.
Here is the third practice, and this one is for the morning before the hard moments arrive. Spend 3 minutes, just 3, sitting with your child with no agenda, no screen, no toy, no task. Sit near them while they play and practice Mimamoru. Watch without directing, notice without correcting, be present without performing. Japanese educators call this foundational time because it fills the child with enough of your attention that they are not spending the day trying to extract it through behavior. The research on what is sometimes called special time studied extensively at the Child Mind Institute in New York and documented in the journal Early Childhood Education Journal shows that as little as 5 minutes of undivided, child-led presence per day measurably reduces behavioral disruption across the following hours. The tantrum that happens at 4 in the afternoon is often the morning's unmet need arriving late. What Japanese parenting wisdom understands, at its core, is that the goal is not a child who never feels overwhelmed. It is a child who has learned, through repeated safe experience, that overwhelm is survivable. that the wave comes and the wave goes, and they are still standing. Every time a parent holds steady through a child's storm, they are writing a new line of code into that child's nervous system. You are safe. This passes. You can do this. And every time we rush to end the storm before it finishes, we accidentally write a different message. This feeling is dangerous, and you cannot handle it without me. The woman in the Osaka grocery store did not know she was practicing neuroscience. She simply knew what her culture had taught her across generations, that children are not problems to be managed, but people to be trusted, that presence is more powerful than intervention, that the pause is not empty, that watching, done with love, is one of the most profound things one human being can offer another. If this video shifted something in the way you see toddler emotions, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more on how the world's wisest cultures quietly build resilient, confident children, subscribe. There's a lot more coming. See you in the next one.
Next one, my dear.
Yes, Mama. I can't wait.
I love you.
I love you too.